All right, the result of 185 candidates who sat for the 2017 West Africa Senior Secondary Certificate Examination has been withheld following the outcome of investigations into suspected cases of exam malpractices. Provisional results released on Wednesday, the 19th of July, shows a marginal improvement in grades obtained in English and Maths. Over 58,000 candidates failed in both English and Maths, while the director of WASSCE, Reverend Samuel Olenu, has been explaining the fate of those caught engaged in various forms of exam malpractices to Dawn News' editor Martha Akokrenso.
Even though the rate of malpractice has gone down, yeah, of course, it is still there. We had people coming in with mobile phones, and some were caught with written notes on them, you know, and some too were caught exchanging answer booklets. Some invigilators too were caught teaching the candidates, you know, and things like that. So, and of course, we also have the IDP, the Item Differential Profile software, which scans the responses of the objective tests and then highlights those that are cheating. And then we take care of that one too as well.
That's quite strange. I'm wondering, because objectives, if it's A, B, C, D, yes, if the answer is D, everyone must get it right. How do you detect this one? By scanning with this ID?
Yes. I won't let out the cat out of the bag here because once I do that, you know, people will try to circumvent it. So suffice it to say that it is able to detect cheating in the objective tests.
Wow. So those are results that are withheld. What is it at school results, and what are these do?
Them are individual results onto our whole school results, because if in the course of the marking the examiner detects mass cheating in the school, you know, the examiner is expected to report, and once the examiner raised the query, the school's results will be withheld for investigations. And when we investigate and there is no substance in the reports, we'll release the results. But if we find something wrong, the appropriate sanctions will be applied.
Okay, I'm sure the sanctions include banning some of these students or schools from writing?
Yes, you know, the school could be I mean, we made to write elsewhere and not in its or her own. I mean, on their premises, you know. Or we could also let external supervisors and invigilators, you know, handle them instead of their own teachers. So I mean, we have a whole range of sanctions that are applied according to the offense. Yeah.
All right, so that is Martha Akokrenso there speaking to Reverend Olenu. Let me run you through an infographic of the rest of the results as released by the West Africa Examination Council there. Well, a total of 289,210 candidates entered for the examination. This figure is 5.45% higher than the 2016 figure of 274,262. The 2017 figure, of course, includes 51% of male and 49% of female. The examination, of course, was conducted for 916 participating schools. A total of 1,732 of the candidates registered were absent from the examination. The performance of the candidates in regard to the 4 core subjects are as follows. The English language, 54.06% obtained A1 to C6. 73,409, which is 25.59%, obtained D7 to E8, was 58,351, which represent 20.35%, had F9. In terms of mathematics, 122,450 students obtained A1 to C6, and 106,024 students obtained D7 A8, D7 to E8. Well, in integrated science, you had 125,204 students obtaining between A1 and C6, and the figures goes on and on. Let's go to the Education Ministry and speak to the PRO. Reverend Bete joins me on the line. Hello, Reverend. Thank you very much for your time. The Ghana Education Service, I beg your pardon. Reverend, thank you very much for your time here on the show.
Thank you very much also.
All right, so let's start with the dwindling quality in basic education. We'll get a bit of figures on that, but ActionAid is reporting that infrastructure deficit, corporal punishment, very terrible teacher-to-pupil ratio continue to hamper the quality of education at the basic level. Is this something that the Ghana Education Service is aware of?
You're talking about corporal punishment or the result of the WASSCE?
I will get to the result. I will get to the results of the WASSCE. Two things that I want to engage you on, sir. First,
Ghana Education Service frowned on the use of corporal punishment or any form of punishment meted on our candidates or students in our schools.
Okay, so hold on for me, sir, just so I make you understand the point. I have two issues that I want to engage you on, sir. One is the fact that the quality in basic education is dropping according to an ActionAid report. And then the second one is the WASSCE. So let's start with the basic education. The report we have is that the quality in basic education is dropping, and some of the reasons that they are assigning for that includes corporal punishment. It includes the teacher-pupil ratio, which is very bad, and then it includes infrastructure deficit. Is this something that you're aware of? I believe it is.
Ghana Education Service is aware of the situations in all the schools in this country. We are aware of the standard in all educational institutions in Ghana, but the standard speaks when the results are out, whether the results are good. If the results are deteriorating, we know that the standards are falling. But as far as the results are improving, we're having tremendous improvements in our examination results. It means that we are doing better than the previous years. So when you talk about the standard in the basic education, we're now talking about, let's concentrate on West Africa Examination Council result. That is the true reflection of what is happening in the basic schools.
You could repeat
if I should understand you.
If you would repeat your final line, sir.
Excuse me, say it again.
Yes, can you please repeat your final words, what you just said? I didn't get you quite clearly on that.
Well, my final word is that the result that we are receiving in the secondary schools result, the WASSCE result, is the true reflection of what is happening in the basic schools. So if we can also see that the WASSCE result has been improved, it means that academic standard is being improved in all the schools, from basic school to the secondary school. We are not denying the fact that there is a need or there is a room for improvement. There is a room for improvement. But if you say that it is deteriorating, going down, if it deteriorates, that means that the WASSCE results are not the true reflection of what is happening in the basic schools.
That sounds a bit complicated, even though the way you put it previously, it's not, for me, it's not as simple as the way you put it. Now, there could be so many different factors that's accounting for what's happening at the basic level and what's happening at the secondary, senior high level. But let's finish with the basic level. First of all, just this year, a school collapsed and killed about 6 kindergarten pupils. When that happened, there were lots of promises. The Ghana Education Service said you're going to do an audit of the facilities within which these young people are studying. What has become of that, sir?
Thank you. If you can recall, I came to your studio, Joy News Studio, that was last week, and spoke on this issue what the government is trying to do, or Ghana Education Service and Ministry of Education are doing, we said that we've taken a record of 8,200 and over schools that had some challenges with their infrastructure, which the Ministry of Education has done his best by allowing people who are contractors, good contractors, to come. And we've given the schools to contractors to start work as soon as possible. So as I'm talking to you, those schools that we earmarked, especially the central region schools, they are at the level of roofing level, lintel level. And I believe by next month, they'll finish with that block also, and few others in the region. So the rest will also take off as soon as possible. And you must also, and the country, every member of this nation should also understand that we cannot complete those buildings within a twinkle of an eye. It must take a little time as we take them step by step.
Very well. Let's address the two other issues. And these are just the key issues. There are still other issues, but the two other key issues are the teacher to pupil ratio, and then the three issues: infrastructural deficiencies, which you have addressed; corporal punishments, which was something that you were talking about earlier. Let's put together corporal punishment and teacher to pupil ratio. It's something that the previous administration said they were working on, the teacher to pupil ratio. What can you report on that, sir?
When you talk about teacher pupil ratio, we know there are a lot of people who are going to school this time because of the free education that we have all heard about and we are enjoying. We started enjoying. There are a lot of parents who have sent their wards to school, and there are more. When you talk about our enrollments are very large at this time, and we have teachers who are yet also to be posted to the schools from next month, August and September. We'll be posting more teachers to the schools. If there is a need for us to have more than one teacher in a particular classroom, we're going to make sure that the right thing is done to make sure that we have equal ratio, and the teachers will also be there to handle the subject so that we have the standard improved. We have made, Ghana Education Service has made provision for all these things from September. So starting from September this year, you realize that we will be the standard will be seen.
I see. Finally, to the WASSCE, sir, it appears that, well, we've recorded some marginal improvement in only Malton science. That's a good thing. What did we do right? Can you tell?
When you talk, I expected you to say kudos to the Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service.
I said that's a good thing. I did say that's a good thing.
WASSCE has also done very well. Now, when you talk about improvement, this year's result has been improved tremendously. When you compare last year, even though last year we praised the result as one of the best, this year has been better than last year, which we can call an improvement in the result. As far as the result that have been brought out from the WASSCE is concerned, we've done very well at this time, meaning that the measures that Ministry of Education and Ghana Education Service put in place to make sure that our candidates or the students perform has worked out. Now, we've intensified supervision in our schools, discipline in our schools, in-service training for our teachers, courses in mathematics and English with organized, and even science also. We've done much last year, which has reflected on this result.
Let's talk also, sir, about the fact that it's only Malton science that we, recorded this improvement. So it means that in the other subjects, we haven't done so well. If we didn't do very well last year, we should be very worried that even in those other subjects, we're still not doing well.
Well, I believe people are much interested in English and math. If you compare the rest, we will soon come up. If you compare the rest, you realize that it's not too bad, but they have done very well in English and math. That is why you saw the results soon. So if there is something to be done, we are yet to sit down And when we get the remaining results before we can say that they have been so bad or not, the 185 one also will be added to it to bring an improvement on the rest of the ones that you realize they are down.
Okay. Well, at least we've done something good with math and English, which are very crucial subjects. So we'll say kudos, just like you wanted me to say. I said that for you. Thank you very much, sir, for your time here on the show. Reverend Bete, Jonathan Bete speaks for the Ghana Education Service. Well, let's go over to Parliament, where the former Deputy Minister in charge of tertiary education, Okujetua Blakwa, is standing by for us. Hello, sir. Thank you very much for your time here on the show.
Well, thank you very much, and good afternoon to you and our distinguished viewers.
Very well. I'm sure it has come to your attention, the successes, the disappointments that we recorded with the recent WASSCE figures.
Yes, it has come to my attention. I have perused the statement from the West African Examination Council, and I believe it is in order to congratulate all the 2017 WASSCE candidates, even those who have not attained the results they expected, especially to transition from the senior high school level to tertiary. They all ought to be commended, and they have to understand that this is not the end of the road. There are opportunities available. Those who want to resit their papers should be encouraged to do that. And I must say that the progress recorded, about a 10 percentage point improvement in the performance in math and English, is something that we should all welcome. It shows that hard work pays. It shows that identifying what the challenges are and consciously spending time and resources to address those challenges do help. You will recall that for a number of years now, math and science has been a challenge, and that has been a major reason for the inability of our WASSCE candidates to transition to the tertiary level. What we did at the Ministry of Education over the last 4 years, when we had the opportunity to serve at the ministry under the able leadership of Professor Nana Jenopoku-Agyemang, was to identify the reasons why we were performing so poorly. And we found out that it was because of how math and science are taught. We found out that we did not have even the adequate supply of math teachers. We discovered that there was a shortage of about 13,000 teachers. So what we did was to quickly move in to address these challenges. We engaged the services of Professor Anku and Professor Alote to put together special maths camps to retrain our maths and science teachers. We also declared a vacancy and advertised for math and science teachers.
Does it sound to me
able to fill the 13,000 vacancy?
Very well, but does it sound to me like you're you're trying to say that we're seeing this result as we're seeing this result because of what the previous administration did in terms of education?
You know, if they will call back.
All right, so you could expect some of the challenges there. We're just speaking with the former Deputy Minister at former Deputy Minister of Education, Okujetua Blakwa, there, speaking about his own thoughts on how the WASSCE students have performed this year. I don't know if we'll be able to get him back on the line, but this afternoon also we swing the pendulum of education in Ghana. At the lower level, we're heading for a crash, whilst prospect, like we're saying already, at the secondary level seems to be improving. And that's, of course, a serious disconnection. We've been speaking, of course, at the about the WASSCE, but at the basic level, a new report, which I engaged the spokesperson for the GES on, issued by the international NGO working against poverty and injustice across the world shows that the growing funding gap in Ghana's basic education is causing the quality to drop, and that's resulting in parents' willingness to rather take their children to private schools and abandon the basic education system. Now, the situation raises concern for the survival of basic education in Ghana. Girls will eventually have to bear the brunt of that problem because most of them do not go to school in this part of our country. Joining us, Abigail Na Anyoko attended day one of a two-day workshop in Accra, where expert and civil society groups discussed actions that need to be taken if the quality of education is to improve.
Ghana's public education system has been bedeviled with many challenges. As a result, it is viewed as one of the poorest as compared to the private education system. The two-day workshop aims at highlighting some of the challenges facing the education sector, particularly in areas of financing. Poor infrastructure and lack of learning and teaching materials were also identified as less motivating for both students and teachers, resulting in high interest in private education. Advocacy and campaign manager at Action Aid Ghana, Margaret Brew Ward, fears the increase in private education in Ghana will affect the country as most girls will drop out of school as a result of lack of funds from parents to patronize private education. She wants government to devise strategies of financing public education.
We are seeing increasing privatization of education in Ghana. And for us at Action Aid, one of our key aims is to ensure quality public education for all children, including girls. When it comes to education financing and where the family resources is limited, the families have the intention or are more inclined towards financing boys as compared to girls. So if we don't take care and we continue to look on whilst privatization continues to reign, there will be a time where education will be privatized entirely, and then girls are going to lose out, because when families can't afford to educate all children, the one they sacrifice is girls' education.
Speaking on the theme, tax privatization and the right to education, influencing education in Ghana, policy analyst and tax coalition coordinator at ISODEC, Bernard Anaba, proposed that government must use a greater portion of the country's tax revenues to finance public education. He's also calling for consistency in financial support for public education.
Currently, what is going internationally is that countries should invest about 20% of their budget in education and about 6% of GDP in financing education. And all of that, about 50% should be allocated to basic school. Over the years, I think our government did well in some of the years, 2011, 2012, thereabout. But by 2015, we have seen a certain decline. So if we really see the education sector as an area that we want to develop and give Ghanaians opportunity, they must be consistent with how much we allocate.
Country Director at Action Aid Ghana, Sumaila Abdul Rahman, is worried the country loses $1.2 million annually from granting tax incentives. And he says the country must focus on generating funds internally instead of depending on donor countries for education, adding government at least 20% of the national budget must be spent on public education.
We are saying that if you look at the global benchmark set by the Global Partnership for Education, that says that just spend 20% of your national allocation to education. Calculate 20% of $1.2 billion. We give you around $240 million. Can you imagine the amount of school buildings, the number of teachers can employ, teaching learning materials? So this is the whole point we are talking about in this particular workshop.
The workshop is expected to end on Thursday, July 20. Na Anyoko Ajay's report for Joy News.
All right, so you have an idea of the situation we're describing now. Let's go back to Parliament so we could continue that conversation with the former Deputy Education Minister, Joseph Opoku Gakpo. We'll take it up from there. Hello, Joseph. You can go ahead now with the interview with the former Deputy Minister.
So very well, Honorable Blakwa. So we, got the explanation that you gave rightly about how come we've seen this improvement. But the bigger question then becomes, how do we sustain it so that then we see even better performance when it comes to maths and science with the WASSCE results?
We will have to continue with the interventions that we put in place. Fortunately, we have the expertise in this country. The Professor Nkus, Professor Alotes are available to help. We need to also continue to source for more funding. We were able to approach the World Bank. They supported our government of Ghana funding for these initiatives. Because we were using GET fund and then the GOG funding in the budget, but we needed more resources, and we were able to get the World Bank to support with $156 million under the Secondary Education Improvement Project. There is also the Girls Pass program, which USAID is helping us with, and so you notice that English too has improved. There is also the GRAP, the Ghana Reading Action Plan, which is also a $75 million initiative that we spearheaded. And so we were able to marshal the needed resources to back these initiatives. And I think that we need to continue with it. Fortunately, some of these programs are 5-year programs, so their duration continues, even though we have left, like the Secondary Education Improvement Program, the Ghana Reading Action Plan. They are all 5-year programs. And I think we have some 2 to 3 years more for the funding to run out. So these are some of the things that I recommend. But certainly we have to be concerned with maths. Maths, you notice that science and then social studies, you notice that there was a decline in science and social studies. It's quite strange that maths will be doing well, but science will be coming down. So more attention has to be paid to science and social studies, those 4 core subjects.
Let's draw a link with something current. Free SHS is coming in September. Is this a threat or a positive development to these increasing rates as far as the good performance with maths and science that we're seeing is concerned?
We have always said that it depends on how you implement it. Free education at all levels, from basic F-cube to secondary, technical, all the way to university, is enshrined in the 1992 Constitution. Article 25 of the Constitution is very clear that education, the ideal for Ghana, is that increasingly based on how we're able to grow this economy and marshal resources, education should be free. The Constitution is the availability of resources, so it is good. But it's about how you implement it. That is why we started with progressively free implementation of secondary school education, because you don't have all the resources you need now. And so what you do is to target. You target the vulnerable. And that's why we started with day students when we rolled out the program some 3 years ago. But the current government said that was not good enough when they were in opposition. They want to do it everybody, for everybody.
Is that a bad idea, you think? Will that result in a decrease in the performance? We see, for example, at the WASSCE level in maths and science?
It can threaten that, because you have a situation where if you look at the 2017 budget, a copy I have here, only 400 million cedis was found for free SHS, which can cover not even all the first year students. And so you notice that the budget talks about first years. Now we don't know what will happen to the second year and third year students. The current government cannot argue that you don't have vulnerable people, you don't have poor people in second year and third year. What they should have done was to identify the vulnerable, the poor, who need support across the spectrum, first year to third year, and then you support them. And with that, you can even give them proper funding. I don't believe that children of MPs, ministers, the governor of the Bank of Ghana, managers of institutions, corporate giants, their chief executives should all be benefiting from free SHS. I don't think that is well thought through. Excuse my language, but that's a lazy approach. The data is available. We can identify the vulnerable who need the support, so that you can also then spare some of the resources to invest in some of these critical areas. Teacher motivation is important. Logistics, equipment, learning materials. All these things are critical. Infrastructure is still, we didn't finish the schools under trees intervention. We may have done some 60 to 70%, but you go out there and there are still lots of schools under trees. You need the resources to have a holistic program for education in Ghana. And if you want to move all the resources to free SHS, which clearly you are struggling to find the resources for, and it's not properly targeted, I don't think it is judicious use of taxpayers' money.
Let me move on finally to another bit. The report by Action Aid indicating that education at the basic level when it comes to the public schools is virtually headed for collapse because there is decreased funding, and so a lot of parents are resorting to the use of private education. Obviously, that's not good for the vulnerable in society. Some may say there's probably an indictment on your track record at the level of the National Democratic Congress over the last 4 years.
I will beg to differ that it's an indictment. We have known for some time now that public basic education requires more attention. But I must say that I'm yet to read the report fully. You have only given me snippets of the report. Let us not create the impression that all public schools are bad and all private schools are good. I disagree with that. Do we have serious challenges at the public basic school level? Yes, we have. And that is why we set out. First of all, there was just a huge infrastructure deficit. I mean, schools that were taking place under trees. So when, the vagaries of the weather, come into, haunt teachers and students, no learning and teaching goes on. So you had to address infrastructure. You had to make sure that you provide adequate facilities. We have been doing that. We have also been addressing at the issue of teacher deficit, especially in rural communities. We've been working on that. The free computer distribution program also started, and all of that, re-equipping the science labs. All those things have been going on. But you see, let's remember that as we made basic education free with the introduction of the capitation grant, trying to achieve F-cube, and the construction of more of these schools, many more people have come into the education space who are pupils and students. So you may look at the cost of funding per child and think that government contribution to education is reducing. But that is not the case. It's because of the numbers and because of the numerous investments that government has been making. If you look at the UNESCO target, which says that to judge a country to know how serious they are taking their education, at least 6% of their GDP should be going to education. Ghana has been doing that consistently. And so I would disagree that we have not paid adequate attention. Can we do more? Can we raise more revenue? Can we form more partnerships? We should. And I also want to caution that let's remember that there are some communities, many, numerous, where the private man will not go and open a private school. They don't have access to private schools. And so let us not discredit our public basic schools. It's not all of them that are doing that badly. Yes, I know that there are serious challenges that we must work on, and we did all of these interventions to address that. But let me also add that the good news is that we have shown in public education that we can get it right at the secondary level.
Exactly. Is there anything we can learn from there at the secondary level that can be applied at the basic level, which will turn the tables around, you think?
Yes, we can. At the secondary level, you notice that we have strong partnerships. The missions are helping. The old boys, old girls, it's very strong. They're always supporting. I mean, look at the recent National Science and Maths quiz. You saw that old boys, old girls, everybody rallied, moved in to support resources and all of that. That is what we need. You don't see that, attachment to our basic education in this country. We more must come on board and support government. Let us not just leave it to the education authorities at the district level, only the security supervisor, the education director at the basic level. We all must come on board and help. And then we must, I think, scale up the funding. Get Fund increasingly, if you look at the Get Fund Act, it's supposed to really prioritize certain key areas. Increasingly, Get Fund appears to be becoming, the mainstay, as if it's the main financier of the education of Ghana. Instead of playing a supplementary role, we need to go back to making sure that Get Fund is playing a supplementary role, and then we mobilize resources from everybody. PTAs must be strong. The district education oversight committees, which the Education Act says that we have to establish. You go to many districts, many communities, they don't have the district education oversight committees. PTAs are not strong as they should be. And because basic education is free, parents have abdicated, chiefs, committee leaders have abdicated, and they're just leaving, the children and teachers to just, be on their own. We all must get on board and make sure that with these interventions, we are able to improve public basic education. I think that's what we can learn from the secondary and the tertiary level.
I'm grateful. Thanks very much for joining us. That's the Honorable Samuel Okudzeto-Ablakwa, the Member of Parliament for North Tongue and former Deputy Education Minister. Back to you, Gifty.
Thank you very much, Joseph Opoku-Gakpo, for that update. Away from that, principal of Jackson Education College in Kumasi, Theodosia Jackson, has called for a holistic approach to enhancing education in adult literacy. This, according to her, will help address poverty, inequality, economic and social disempowerment.
Mrs. Theodosia Jackson says adult education could help promote active citizenship and peace in democratic societies, and that it could be an important intervention mechanism in addressing social and political challenges. She made the comments during the college's graduation in the Ashanti regional capital, Kumasi.
To our dear graduates, Jackson College of Education has given you a kick start to success. But your ultimate success in life depends largely on your attitude to life and work.
She also revealed that Jackson's College of Education is the first private teacher training college in Ghana spearheading private distance learning of diploma in basic education. Mrs. Jackson said the school is open to everyone, including farmers and market women who want to further their education.
College of Education has succeeded in attracting people from different professions, statuses and walks of life under the academic umbrella through the distance learning. We have chiefs, queen mothers, police officers, army officers, banking officers, cocoa board and what have you, who have come to learn to upgrade their academic status. Some of them are even clergy who will be ordained, and others are also ordained ministers who have taken the advantage to upgrade themselves through the distance learning models by Jackson College of Education.
She therefore appealed to the government to focus priority attention on developing the education sector, given its critical role in the socio-economic progress of the society. She also charged the students to be good ambassadors of the school.
The institution will be happy to see you rise to the top of the academic pedestal, as some of your mates have started doing.
You're still watching The Pulse with me, Gifty and Doppia. I'm going to take a very quick break. I'll be right back. Please stay.